Who do I call if it ain't you? Tell me who to call if it ain't you.
Whoa,
Hi.
hi, how you doing?
Good. How are
Sorry,
you?
it's
Happy
running a
Friday.
happy
Woo.
Friday. Yeah, sorry I'm running a few minutes late. It's been like, well, been a little crazy today. So actually this week generally has
No,
been crazy. I'm just adjusting. So, um,
no worries. No
uh
worries. Yeah, I'm stoked. I think everyone's pretty excited to to hear what you have to say today
mhm.
too. So,
Yeah,
yeah, how
thanks
are
for
you
having
doing?
me. So, good.
Of
Just
course.
like, I mean, it's like been interesting. Like, I don't know, with COVID happening, like, I think there are a lot of like, obviously negative things that have occurred, but then there's tons of like positive things that occurred
Yeah.
from it too that I didn't really expect. And I think a lot of that just has to do with
Yeah.
like our brand and strategy and community anyway. It kind of lent itself really well to the COVID situation. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I would love to hear more about
yeah.
that too. So for everyone that's just joining us, I'm one half of Heysisworld, and right here is Koh
hmm
Kim. She's the founder of Evenprime.
hmm
And just to do a little blurb on Evenprime, Evenprime is a self-care brand for the young men and women of the gaming generation. Evenprime works with leading formulators and their community to deliver science-first formulas to protect the skin barrier from modern environmental aggressors like pollution, stress, and blue light. Definitely something I'm dealing with every single day, especially
Yeah.
being in front of like computers, my
Hello.
phone before I go to bed.
hmm
Last night I was on TikTok.
Yeah,
I don't want
it's
to talk about that.
yeah, let's not. I mean,
But
I feel
yeah.
like my morning coffee is always with TikTok, and it's like funny because like I play around with that so much more. And I look at all the skincare routines that I see on TikTok, and I'm like, oh no,
Oh,
please, I can't.
really?
It's like,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, I need to just start doing duets or commentary on some of these like
Yes.
TikTok skincare routines because they're like terrible. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know why you would even like suggest that. So,
Yeah.
but
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure everyone's just like following the same thing. But that's a good idea. You should do duets
yeah,
like
it's
for even
like
Prime.
it's just kind of like I don't know, even for like our own brand channel. Like I mean, I think TikTok's more fun too. I'm kind of glad there's like a social media channel that's a little bit less serious, and so
Yeah, me
um
too. R.I.P. Vine. I don't know if you ever like were on that,
yeah,
but
oh God, I remember Vine. Man, like literally like yeah, rest in peace. Like I mean, I feel
right?
like TikTok is like Vine 2.0, so
Yeah, I'm
um
thankful for it, especially
mhm,
right now. Actually,
yeah.
it's like my
Yeah.
therapy for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Cool. So why don't we just get into it? And so I want to know how you even started Even Prime. And I was hoping you can talk to us about your background as well,
Mhm.
working at Google, and kind of like condense that journey into what a little story for us.
Yeah, I guess like I would want to say like my journey is a little bit atypical. Like if you look at it on paper, you'd probably think, okay, like this girl is either like has like nine lives or like just doesn't know what to do with their life. But I mean, it's kind of like I think like my entire like life philosophy has been like I'm truly fulfilled when I solve unsolved problems. And so that's why
Yeah.
like I think my career has developed to a point where it's kind of like this interesting narrative. The only like theme is literally how do I connect disconnected things like and make it into something that's cool, like where no one else thought about. And so that's been actually my entire
Yeah.
career. So I guess like even with the whole Even Prime, that's kind of
Mhm.
like it's like an interesting story. So like I guess like TLDR, I used to work at Google from 2010, 2015. I worked on three different products. Two of them were Chrome and the other one was Google Play or Android. Um, I think
Oh,
everyone
awesome.
uses the
Cool.
Chrome browser. So like I guess I'm also
I used to
claim to
have an
fame,
Android.
like the
I'm
current
familiar.
Google's yeah, the current Google CEO I actually worked with. So there's like a lot, and I already knew back then, I was like, this guy's gonna be CEO. There's like no question. Like I already knew back then that this dude is gonna be like CEO.
Yeah.
Um, so like, but I think like that I think the Google product development philosophy has definitely kind of affected the way that I think about how to build like product, like even if it's digital or if it's like physical. So, and a
Hmm.
lot of it is just really understanding the user, right? Like who is the end consumer using the product. And then when I was
Yeah.
on Android, I was like launching a lot of these international markets. I was on the plane all the freaking time. And so like there was no way that I was gonna bring I mean, I sometimes have to like literally get off a plane, a trans-Pacific flight into Korea, land, and go straight to a dinner with like CEOs of like giant Korean companies. And like, I can't look like a disheveled disaster. So like, so ultimately what started to happen was like, I really started to pay attention to like how like my skincare routine was, because like I figured out that I was like, well, if I have great skin, then I don't need any of this color cosmetics foundation, or I can actually keep it pretty basic. And so I think that's kind of started what my personal journey is in terms of like kind of like at least like my own personal skincare journey. But then I took it from an approach of like, all right, what are the problems that I have? And then how do I figure out the skincare products are like basically the ingredients that's going to work for those specific problems. And so, because like in college, I studied biochem for a bit before I switched to math. But I mean, a lot of the kind of, it was like bringing back what I learned in college and then applying it with like the Google or tech philosophy, how you build products. I was kind of like, well, I have this problem. What are the ingredients that can solve that problem? And then like, how do I mix them all together so that it would yield like, and like, what is the type of formulations or textures that I'm going to need in order to deliver the results that I hopefully want? So there's definitely a lot of trial and error, but a lot of it involves the education. This is like 2012, 2013, where I was really diving deep into like skincare, cosmetics, chemistry. And I think I realized, I was like, man, like there are some terrible things in like our products that, and then people are paying like hundreds of dollars for, which is kind of insane when you think about it. So so I think that's kind of like what started, but really what prompted me to really start the brand was that like I was working with a lot of like gaming YouTubers and Twitch streamers towards the end of that career. And like when they started asking me about like, what do I do for my skincare, which I was kind of like flabbergasted by, like, I was like, dude, like you're 19, why are you asking me about this? And then I thought about it and I was like, you know, like these people have like hundreds of live viewers watching them all at the same time. So so it's kind of like, I think that's what clicked, because I was like, dude, if this is what our younger generation wants to grow up to be, is to be a Twitch streamer or a YouTuber, then like, and if these YouTubers are asking me how do I like have like really good skin or how do I address it, then that wave is going to be coming. And so so that was like back in like 4 to 5 years ago. So, and you know, a lot of these problems, I mean, they're latent, right? And they're going to like, I mean, like they'll start to like steamroll and accelerate. So I started working on a company in 2017. I spent most of the first 18 months in product development and just building out relationships with a lot of these labs and suppliers, especially in Korea, because I already knew that I was going to make our product in Korea, because like we all know that's where the best skincare is made. So hands down.
Why is like Faye Beauty at the forefront? Like what makes it like different?
So yeah, there's like it's like a couple things, right? And it's going to go down like history a little bit. So I think just like historically, if you look at Asian beauty generally as a philosophy, and then that's including Japan, Taiwan, China, Korea, it was already kind of rooted in natural stuff to begin with. Like they actually really cared about like what we called maintaining and investing into like what you have versus like I'm here to fix something immediately, which is like the Western beauty philosophy. So because they're already kind of like of the belief, it's like, I have to commit to something. I need to like, you know, like apply things. They talk about hydration. It's all about like maintaining and like kind of, I guess like they call it in Korean like simmering. That's like the closest like English equivalent. Like it's a very weird Korean proverb, but like a lot of it's kind of like, like you have great features, you should enhance what you have. And in order to do that, you need to invest in like a routine or the products that's going to work for you. And so they already were taking a very holistic look at your skincare anyway, even like thousands of years ago. And like, if you look at the kings and queens, right, they already had like, hey, like this is like the meal that they should have. And then this is kind of like the types of like oils or like botanical extracts or like medicine be taking to like contribute to their health, and that also included skin. So they already had that kind of culturally inherently to begin with. Now I think what happened in like the 50s or 60s, like after the Korean War, was that Korea was like, look, like we're a small country, we're not going to compete with these large countries in terms of like skincare, like in terms of like resources or export, like China, right? Like they don't have natural resources. So the government actually made a specific decision to strategically invest in what we called culture exports. So they're like, we're going to be the country that can export culture. So, and skincare beauty was part of that, including K-pop, right? But they've already made that decision to invest in that
Interesting.
a very long time ago. And so a lot of the ways that they built the infrastructure and kind of like what they should be prioritizing on and who actually gets government resource support has been to supporting like these cultural export industries. So that's kind of like why it's kind of like all came about. It was like, yeah, like you have K-pop, and then you have like the music industry, the entertainment industry, the beauty industry. Those are all culture exports. So, so that's why I think a lot of that kind of, I would say, investment and why the Korean beauty is really good. It's like a combo of like a consumer culture in terms with government support. So it's like,
yeah. No, I definitely see that, especially like in your brand. You can tell that you've done the research, and you also, it seems like it's a huge part of like you, like your experiences. Like you definitely, you put that, you were talking earlier about the problems that you had. I'm wondering, was that related to like blue light and also like stress of just like being in front of the computer, and how you put that into your product now? And also
so I think like, I mean, there were like two problems I was trying to address. I mean, one is obviously my personal skin, right? Like stress, air pollution, because I live in a city environment, right? There's also like, I mean, obviously like there's decisions yet on whether like blue light's going to be affected, but like there's something called bioaccumulation, and I'm fairly certain that extended exposure to a certain type of screen and light is probably not going to be a good thing. So it's just that there has been a lot of studies on, but it totally makes sense. And so, and also like blue light is on the visible light spectrum. So like sunscreen doesn't even help protect against blue light. So, because sun's SPS protects against UV rays, which are not visible light spectrums. And so like, there's a lot of like interesting kind of science involved. And I think a lot of it is early too. So I think it's like my concern of like, yes, this is definitely gonna be a thing. And then also like another thing is just more of like simplicity. Like I actually think skincare, and it shouldn't be this way, but I think it's just overtly complicated. And I think a lot of that is because the industry, I mean, being a capitalist society, is built on like, you want to fix something now, right? And we want to cover up this problem now. And the problem is like, that means there's like tons of product. So, so like, I think like the, I think that's like the biggest issue really, is just that, a lot of like, and then also most traditional beauty brands, especially the big brands, like their companies, our businesses are built on scaling at volume, like very specific products, but the only way they can expand revenue is by releasing new products. But because they have such large operations, they're only incentivized to deliver products with the ingredients they already have that they can buy at scale. So there's not a lot of incentive for like innovation or really rethinking formulations, because that means they have to abandon like the hundreds of thousands of like barrels of like raw materials that they already have in house. So, or that they already purchased or already have options contracts on. So, and I don't think a lot of people understand that, but like it totally makes sense when you think about it. Like, they have to supply all these drugstores in the world. Why would they change something that isn't demanded by all of their customers, right? So speaking of customers, how did you, I think this is like the coolest part about your brand, like the fact that you made it for men and women. Usually a skincare brand is so catered towards like just like the female audience, and also like you incorporating this science fiction, like anime branding into it. I just love your branding. Can you expand a little bit more on that and how you came to decide on going in that direction? Sure. I mean, like we have an interesting history with Evenprime. So what you see that current brand is actually what we called Evenprime 2.0. So like Evenprime 1.0, which was actually released in 2018, was originally conceived as a skincare for men. It was actually a men's skincare brand, but we actually didn't market it as a men's skincare brand. And even if you look at the packaging, it was very like monochrome. It was very like, there was no like color palette indicator that would lean men or women the other, but there was definitely a lot more like masculine elements involved. And so I think like based on like, so we released that in 2018. A few months in, I have personally reached out to every single customer that's ever purchased EP product, just to see like what people thought about it, and like, you know, why they came to us, like just to understand like what drew them into like a product, right? Because in the end, you're building a business based on why your consumers are using your business. And so that's why I think it's really important to talk to your consumers or your users all the time, because you're going to get just insights that you wouldn't think about. But we figured out that like we had two different customer bases, one that was like much older, that obviously were only buying it because their wife and all that were telling them to buy it. But then we had this like consumer base that was like that was actually younger than 25, who were coming to us and being like, you know, like, actually, like, this was the first skincare brand. Not only like aesthetically it kind of looked cool, or at least like it isn't like dark blue or dark whatever colors, right? It was kind of like speaking to me from that ingredients front. And then when I was talking to them about it, the brands that they were aspiring to like own were like Barbara Sturm or like Fern Skincare, and these are like luxury $200 skincare brands, right? And this is like a 16-year-old guy that was telling me these are the brands that they aspire to own one day in their life. And so I kind of like immediately took that as, you know, like, that's really interesting, because that actually implies you have very different motivations and interests on why you would align with a brand to begin with. And I found that fascinating as someone that, you know, kind of came from tech and be like, oh, like, no one's actually built a brand for them. And I already knew back then that our brand then 1.0 was not built for this specific type of consumer. So I think that's when we're like, all right, back to the drawing board. I actually can't take full credit for like what our current brand is, because I actually talked to actually a former business partner of mine who's like a creative, who was like an art director behind that. So he used to work for Jay-Z and a lot of these other fashion brands. And he's also has a huge thing about like Japanese anime. So I was like, hey, like, we have a consumer that's clearly a lot more educated, and that's male or female, and gender was no mention in whether they would choose a skincare brand or not. And so we just got together and kind of,
that's like definitely like the Gen Z generation. Like, they just have so much information that's available to them. So they're just like, they know, and they're able to like dive into like these, exactly like what goes into skincare. They're more about all of that.
Yeah. So I think like, so his name is like Ricky. So Ricky and I kind of put our heads together and really thought about, okay, like, what is like the motivations, or kind of like, I would say the whys for this consumer to like latch onto a brand and latch onto like at least like thing. And I mean, to me, it was like really interesting, because I was like, this is a generation that plays games. This is a generation that chats on like Fortnite and all that stuff and watches Twitch, right? Like they don't care. Or it's like interesting. It's kind of like they're the ones that are using like their AirPods to pass notes in class, right? This is like a truly innovative consumer.
I'm so jealous. I wish
I mean, they're just hacking their way through life, right? And I find that as someone like a culture.
It's a blessing to be in the Gen Z.
Yeah.
You're right. Right.
I think so. I think it's like, I mean, it gives me a lot of hope for the younger generation, because I was like, okay, these are the people that, you know, it's like, it's no BS, right? Like they immediately know whether it's saying. And I think that's kind of like, for me personally, is kind of like, just in terms of a personality type and also just kind of a brand ethos, I was like, you know, like, I really just want to align with this consumer. Like, actually, it's not like I don't care about my older consumers, but I'm like, no, like, this is the future consumer. And I should be really building a brand, and not just like skincare, but it's kind of like, like, how do we rethink consumer packaged goods in the personal care and all that body care category that's specifically geared towards a generation that are obviously going to do their own research. So
I think that's really smart. And like, even when I was doing research on your brand, I resonated with that a lot, because I think that you have to adapt and you have to like continue educating yourself. And that's definitely something that, like, you know, our generation and up, like, have to continue having these conversations with
No, for sure. And I think I mean, we built like the current version of the brand, I mean, it was very specific. I mean, it was kind of like, I mean, no gender was a thing, because we wanted to focus on ingredients. I mean, obviously everyone has the same skincare concern, so the same ingredients is going to treat it no matter what. It's really thinking about the formulation. So there is obviously going to be slight differences between men and women due to like testosterone levels. And so like, and obviously men have facial hair, right? So it's like an entirely different thing they have to think about. So a lot of men can't use heavy emollients, because it actually clogs up their pores, leading to ingrown hairs and all that stuff. And so whereas women, like, heavier emollient creams are actually okay, because they tend to be on the drier side anyway, and then they approach dry skin a lot earlier in their life. I mean, unfortunately for men, they just have a lot more built-in collagen reserves than women. So that's why, like, when they don't do anything, they look better. It's because they just have infinitely more collagen. Yeah, it's kind of sad.
True.
It's like really sad. So,
yeah. Sorry, before
yeah.
I know we're running out of time, like
Yeah.
in a little bit, but just to interject, if anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask. There's a little question mark button. You can ask Koh about anything skincare related. We'll bring it up. All right.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no worries. And I was trying to like track on like people. Someone's like, you should make a sunscreen that has blue light protection.
I saw that.
I was like, well, as I said, like SPF doesn't protect against visible light. And so the only thing you can really do is really think about like the antioxidant, like ingredients that are really chock full of antioxidants. I mean, that's really the kind of like the best way to kind of combat a lot of that. So I think like a lot of this, so it's like interesting, right? You're kind of like, I'm building a brand, we're evolving. We set up our brand to be like, our products will always evolve, right? Like we have version histories on stuff that we report on. I mean, like, I don't actually think our current product lineup is supposed to be static. Like, I don't think we're doing our jobs if our formulas and packaging remains the same 10 years from now, or even 3 years from now. So I think like really the best thing is to kind of figure out. So I guess like we can start addressing questions with the remaining time.
Yeah. So what is the best daily routine, 9-step? What would you suggest? This is a good question.
That's a good question. So yeah, so I personally think keeping it simple is the best way to start, because when you have a more complicated like 9 and 10-step routine, and actually that is not the cool thing to do in Korea anymore. No one has a 10-step routine. So it's like, so in reality, like people are marketing in a 10-step. Actually, that's just not reality. So it's like, take it from the Korean. I will tell you, it's not reality. But like, but daily routine, just keep it simple, right? There are basic steps that one should do every single day, morning or evening, right? Like in the morning, like you should be washing your face and moisturizing, and obviously during the daytime wear SPF. I mean, that's like maximum 3 steps. I mean, people can say toner and all that stuff. I think in reality, if you have a good pH balance cleanser, you actually probably don't need the toner. The toner is just an extra hydrating step. So in the evening, that's kind of where, because like at night, actually your skin recovers. That's the time that it recovers. And so actually having your actives then is the best time to have your actives. So obviously, rather than SPF, what happens is before your moisturizer, you add a serum. So I tell people like where you should spend your money is definitely on the serum, because the actives do cost money. As someone who develops product, it is much harder to stabilize certain active ingredients at much higher concentrations. And that's what serums are for. So it's actually okay to spend a little bit of your money there. Yeah. That being said, there's definitely serums that are $200 that are not worth $200 at all. But I definitely think it's about keeping it simple, listening to what your skin really needs. Obviously, if you wear makeup, I'm a big proponent of double cleansing. That's using both an oil-based cleanser and then also a water-based cleanser right after it, because in reality, you need to make sure that your face is clear and debunked, because if you have junk on it, obviously that's what's going to cause a lot of the problems, right? So fresh face for real, that's like what I think. But I definitely am prone to keeping it simple and doing that for a full cycle. It's what I call the 30-day. The typical skin cycle is about 28 to 30 days. That's a cell turnover. Do that for 30 because you need to have a reset. And then based on that reset, then you can figure out, okay, like how does my skin feel now? Is there like more redness? Is there like hyperpigmentation? Do I have dark spots, or do I break out a little bit more often? And then based on that, you can actually choose the treatment products that you need. So I think the problem is people use way too many products, because, you know, even too many products can interact with each other and cause negative things. So I'm a big believer of simple, keep it simple. Keep it simple the first 30 days if you don't know what's going to work for you. So
got it. Someone said love simple. Me too. 10-step routine debunked. Yes.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think the most steps I've ever done in my life was 5.
Okay.
But that's the importance of having good quality product, right? Because if you have really good product, it can take over 2 steps of routine and all that stuff, right? I mean, obviously one should exfoliate, but I don't really count that an everyday step anyway. So anyway.
Yeah. What about, I read somewhere that you shouldn't wash your face in the morning. Like I've read that somewhere recently. Is that a thing?
Yeah. I guess it depends on, well, I mean, it depends on whether you wash your pillowcase regularly or not. I still think like no one lives in a perfectly clean environment. So I think it's better to like wash your face or at least like refresh it before you put anything else on, especially makeup. A lot of the don't wash your face in the morning thing is really about people who have drier skin or like don't wear makeup a lot. So in which case, like doing like a toner swipe or like even just rinsing off with water is probably sufficient. But I think it depends on like what your like kind of personal day to day is, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I think like I'm like, I mean, I live next to, I don't think, I mean, I live in an old apartment, like that's like built in the 50s or 60s. Like I live next to the beach. I'm pretty sure sand comes in all the time. Like, it's just, I just like the comfort of knowing that my face is fairly clean, especially because I do put on makeup sometimes over the day and all that stuff. So
awesome. So tell us a little bit like about like, where do you think Evenprime's going to go? Like, where do you want to take it? Do you want to kind of like continue building the brand out in like the science fiction world, or what are some?
I think like, well, I think like the plan is like, I mean, obviously we have new products coming in. I think next new product number 1 is dropping in a few weeks, hopefully later this month. New product number 2, which I'm really excited about, drops next month, early July. So like we're trying to, so this year the products are more focused on like treatment products. And so like our first 3 products is what I call the routine, like foundation, like no matter what, they're fine. Face wash, toner, moisturizer, like that's probably like end all be all. This year it's about the treatment products. So that probably hints at a lot of serum products. We're definitely kind of going into that territory. I think like, and also like we're really thinking a lot about like becoming, I believe Evenprime is probably what I want to equate to like, I think like essentials, but like I don't want to say like elevated essentials because that sounds a little snobby, but I think a lot of it is kind of like this more of like science-backed, like pragmatic essentials. It's like we know we need this every day, but these categories just typically have not seen innovation in a very long time, whether it's on the packaging or on the formulation fronts. So I think a lot of that is kind of like we want to be the brand where people can go to shop for like their everyday needs, especially specifically in the personal care kind of skincare world and the beauty world. And so that's kind of like where I would want to take it. So how did I build the confidence to make the jump from tech into skincare space? It's also a good question. As I said, I like solving problems that aren't unsolved. So I'm also a big believer of learning. And so I think at some point, like I wasn't learning a lot. I mean, tech was great, like consumer tech. And I was in video games specifically, which was even a much faster space. And like now I'm able to like marry my like gaming interest with beauty interest, which is kind of fun. So kind of like combining both of those worlds has been definitely really interesting. But I think ultimately it's the consumer, right? Like I had the confidence because I just saw a lot of similarities between a gaming consumer and a beauty consumer. And in reality, like everyone plays games now, especially the younger consumer. So I feel like most beauty, any consumer product right now, if they don't understand that culture, they're probably going to be irrelevant in 10 years and maybe less. So that's just what I believe. I actually think COVID made that faster. Like, I'm pretty sure maybe it's even accelerated. So it's like,
no, you're right. Especially like right now, everybody's like not going outside as much and like staying in. So that's
look at pop culture now, right? Like Lady Gaga's new album, that's very space sci-fi oriented. Look at like, I mean, even Billie Eilish, right? And like you look at her music videos, there's definitely a lot of influence in like the anime space. You look at like the new single cover album dropped, I think from Beyonce and all that stuff, like that just dropped yesterday. That artist has a lot of 90s anime references in his cover art. So I think that's exciting. So like, I mean, if you look at Lil Nas, same thing. He talks about like Naruto and Dragon Ball Z all the time. So I think it's definitely coming to a point where Asian pop culture is becoming a much bigger influence in Western pop culture than ever before. So, and if any consumer brand is not paying attention, as I said, they're just going to be irrelevant. So
true. I think you're absolutely right. And Dua Lipa and the Weeknd.
I know, Dua Lipa and Weeknd. No, that's right. Like actually, I think the Weeknd's creative director bought our product before. So anyway, but like that's and awesome. Like and even RL Grimes, right? All of her stuff is like sci-fi anime, like Ghosts in the Shell, like it's like yeah, people need to pay attention to pop culture. Like,
Right.
this is what people want to be. And it's not just Hollywood. It's not just YouTube and gaming. It's across sport. I mean, Travis Scott putting on a virtual concert in Fortnite is basically what I call We're Here, right? So that is that astronomical concert, like, that had 12 million live viewers, right? You are not going to get that at a live concert. So, I mean, the world is changing, like, it's changing now. So, and
God,
that's where I want to be. So it's like, so that's kind of like.
Yeah. I guess I have another question, more Hey Sis question. I feel like you just like, you're someone talking to you, you're someone who stuck to your gut. Like, you knew where the direction of like the world is going, and that's something that you've like held on to really well, and it's working out for you in your brand. What kind of advice would you give to women who are building their own brand and they have this idea in their gut and they want to stick to it? Like, how do you what's something that like grounds you, that like helps you keep going and kind of like stick to it?
I think the biggest thing is being humble and validating. So the best thing that Google and like the tech world and the gaming world has taught me was like, always continue to vet your idea, and like, and not because like, and like, it's kind of like, yeah, like, you're going to make assumptions that are wrong. Like, I mean, it's so many wrong things. I mean, I started doing skincare for this in 2017 and people thought I was crazy, right? So or I even started talking about this in 2016, let's be real. And then in 2017, I decided to start business and start working on it full time. And a lot of people thought that was crazy back then. And now they're like, oh, like, that's kind of cool. And I was like, yeah, I've been pitching you this idea for 3 years, but I knew innately that it was going to work because I already had a couple of things, but I continuously kind of vetted against it. So whether that's testing on Facebook ads, whether that's like creating a community, whether that's writing about it, whether it's sharing on Instagram and all that stuff. So I think the key is to like, it's not necessarily not giving up, but it's more of like, continue to vet and validate your idea and your assumptions, because you're eventually going to find the answer, right? Like, and it may not be what you originally thought, but if it turns out that it's continually correct, it just gives you that much more, I think, confidence that you're going on the right path. And I think to like, especially if you're pitching to any investor and all that stuff, like, they can't complain against data, right? They can totally push back on like, kind of like grandeur visions and all that stuff. But if you have the data to back it up, like, they just can't. It's like, it's kind of like, all right, cool. Like, and I think that's where a lot of, I think, especially like female entrepreneurs and minority entrepreneurs, I think they don't take that seriously enough. And I mean, I will definitely say that continuing to vet and talking to all of these consumers, I mean, that just gave me firepower, really. So, and I think that's important to do. So it's a lot of work, but it's important to do. So, anyway.
Hell yeah. I love that answer. All right, you guys, I think we're nearing the end of this. If you have any more questions, speak now, forever hold your peace. Otherwise, this was so awesome talking to you, Koh, and I feel like I could talk to you forever and just listen to you, like, go on about,
I mean, we should just like, I'm always happy to do this regularly. Like, I think I'm going on another, like, I mean, I do a weekly stream too, but I talk about like founder war stories, which, I mean, like, we talk about what it's like to be a wartime CEO than a peacetime CEO, because COVID is now wartime. So
I'm tuned into that though. That's actually,
so
like, still
so just like kind of like talking to people about that. But yeah, like, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. So, and like, thanks for everything for watching. So, all right.
Of course. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Bye, you guys.
Bye, guys.